The El Salvadoran president and Trump's new buddy, Nayib Bukele, traveled to the White House to meet with Trump. Now, this comes in front of the backdrop of compelling evidence that potentially numerous innocent people, some with legal status, have been deported to this El Salvadoran prison camp. And despite court rulings, even the Supreme Court saying that Abrigo Garcia, the U.S. government needs to facilitate his return, the Trump administration and Bukele are gleefully saying that's not going to happen. Again, throwing out the whole system of due process and the protections for the innocent in the United States. This was one of those things that was supposed to make the United States special. So, of course, punish the guilty to the fullest extent of the law, but protect the innocent. And that is what the United States now under Donald Trump is throwing out. Now, there was this weird moment. It looks like, I can't tell what feed this comes from. And sometimes a meme will happen. The press will get ushered out, but a camera will still be in there as it's getting taken down and sort of catches moments after all the press already got pushed out of the room. I don't know if this was supposed to be recording or not. By the way Trump's talking, it seemed like it could not be, where he's kind of talking under his breath, reflecting on what just happened, and saying that the press was shocked when he started suggesting that we shouldn't just throw out our laws when it comes to migrants, but also, quote unquote, homegrown U.S. citizens who are alleged to be criminals. Please do click the subscribe button. Let's jump into this, and then we'll look at some clips from the meeting itself. But here's the pretty disturbing on-camera moment I was referring to.
Demanded the people wanted to change everything, and they wanted. He demanded. They love you. They love what you do. I'm not your supporter. I want him to do. Homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said homegrowns are next. The homegrowns built. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right. It's not big enough. No, yeah. Come on. So this is a much different office than you.
So maybe that was supposed to be recording, maybe it wasn't, but the quote here is, as Aaron Rupar notes, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. It's not big enough. So he's talking about U.S. citizens, even, to add to the list. And then think about this. We've seen Trump get his DOJ to launch investigations into his political enemies who are alleged legitimately to have done nothing criminal. Miles Taylor for writing a book Trump didn't like, literally. And Christopher Krebs for being a cybersecurity official and saying, no, the election wasn't stolen. And the DOJ is going to investigate them now at Trump's direction. Now, add that to people, again, with very compelling evidence indicating they were innocent, now rotting away in an El Salvadoran prison camp. Think about their track record with identifying who is actually the dangerous criminals they say. Added to who they're now targeting, not criminals, but Trump's enemies, with his suggestion that this prison camp should be for even Americans. I mean, the human rights violations and the throwing out of our system of laws, despite Trump doing the caveat of we're going to follow the law, except for they don't. They keep saying that, but then they don't. Just like how at meetings like this one, after a court order says the First Amendment was being violated by them targeting the Associated Press and removing their ability to report from the White House, they still aren't letting the Associated Press report there. It is a grim, grim picture being put together. And we'll talk about that more as we go further. This is now the official meeting and this topic coming up.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? They totally how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to.
Yeah, so the problem is, sir, that there's not evidence of that. See, that's a little tiny, icky problem with your articulation there, which is that it's not you smuggling a terrorist into the United States, because that's the issue, that was wrongfully asserted. And if you have evidence of it, bring it forward.
Return him to the United States.
So you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into.
Yeah, okay. And then we go further. Let's pause here with some Washington Post reporting about another one of these cases. Someone being snatched up, but the evidence not being someone who had a student visa and was studying at Tufts University. Days before mass immigration and customs enforcement agents detained Tufts University student Romesa Öztürk to deport her, the State Department determined that the Trump administration had not produced any evidence showing that she engaged in anti-Semitic activities or made public statements supporting a terrorist organization, as the government has alleged. The finding, contained in a March memo that was described to the Washington Post, said Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not have sufficient grounds, but despite that, she was snatched up by, literally, this sounds like I'm hyperbolizing it. You can go watch the video. Snatched up by masked, unmarked agents, thrown into a car with no due process. And then Trump asked about one of these mentioned individuals.
Are you willing to pay for those facilities to be opened if new ones were going to be built?
I'd do something. We'd help them out. Yeah, we help them. They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
So, I mean, he does this with everything. If it's not against the law, but then they just go ahead and violate the law and misstate what the law is. This comes from the guy who said it would be legal to terminate the Constitution. So let's not take his legal assessment seriously whatsoever. Joshua Reed Eagle. Oh, and add to that, obviously, no matter how terrible, someone that we would all want to suffer horrible long-term punishment for a terrible crime, even that person, it wouldn't be legal to deport a U.S. citizen to a foreign prison. And then they're not good at identifying who actually did the bad crimes. Clearly, we've learned. Now, this post, there's no trolling ever. It's always trial balloons for the real thing. If SCOTUS and Congress don't act to free Garcia now, America as we know it is over. That statement has been overused, overdone, and it feels like it has to be hyperbole when people use it. It doesn't mean the country's going to disappear. It doesn't mean that you're going to disappear necessarily, but that the principles that make, you know how often we'll say, you can't really define America racially. We're a very diverse country. You can't define it based off of food. We have all sorts of different food. I know that it's moving back from DC back to Austin where there's actually good food. Very different food. And it goes on, but what you can define us by is the pillars of principles that we unite around, we stand for, and our patriotism comes from. It doesn't matter. You were born here. You're of this race, this gender, that gender. You immigrated here, bought into those principles, ultimately was naturalized to be a citizen. How do all those people from different backgrounds unite around one incredible thing? The ideas. It sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's actually how we've defined ourselves to be. Then building that set of ideas that we never fully fulfill, but we are supposed to constantly be striving towards, has led to the most powerful country in the history of the world. So clearly it works. It can work. As long as we're constantly pursuing those principles. And so, yes, the America that we know, if we were to abandon one of those key principles, like protecting the innocent and standing for justice, that would be, for the time being, us giving up on the very idea of America. Let's go on from that topic. Trump here, as we've been following, is now on his I did a person, woman, man, camera TV test again. I knew, like, so good. I did so good at zebra identifying.
Very low IQ president. And by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of
A cognitive. It's a not a cognitive. Cognitive.
cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, "Sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of, that was the highest mark." I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I notice there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, "Sir, would you like to take a cognitive test?" I said, "Did Biden take one?" "No." "Did anybody take one?" "No, not too many people took them." I said, what about Obama? Did he take one?" "No, he didn't take one either." I said, "Let me be the only one to take one." But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take.
Yeah, the whole idea behind the test, at least the last one, which was the only one we found out the specific type of it, the only people who are supposed to do bad on those are when you have serious dementia, because they're dementia screening tests, making sure there's not some serious issue there. But he keeps bragging about it. And then on a really sick note, we talked about in a different segment today, his lashing out again against Zelensky and then him threatening 60 Minutes. Whenever they did their Zelensky interview that just broadcasted last night. And here he doubles down on this idea. And to think that if you wanted to be sympathetic to Trump at all, which his actions don't deserve it, but if you were to go, okay, how can I most steelman his argument? It's that he really, when he came into office, believed that for some reason Zelensky didn't want peace. And if you were to try to sympathize with that, all of the sympathy that you shouldn't have already been providing to him should have run out when Ukraine took every step for peace and Putin just keeps pounding, as Trump will say, striking, murdering, as Ukraine is currently agreeing to a unconditional ceasefire, but Russia isn't. And still Trump has the gall and the disgusting set of his own ideological issues to say this.
President Zelensky served out his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries.
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles. You know, he's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war. Right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size, and then hope that people give you some missiles.
President Zelensky.
He's talking about Zelensky, which, by the way, when I say this, I say it because it's true, but sometimes what I'm about to say comes off like it's making light of the human toll. It's not. But from a military perspective, Ukraine, more than anyone had expected, has been militarily cleaning Russia's clock and are currently winning the war of attrition. Russia's not making gains, barely. But what is happening is mass death, which is why we all want a lasting peace to be agreed to. But the whole, how could you... Russia started the war, which is why it's so unbelievable and incredible that Ukraine's been able to defend itself like it has. But the Trumps of the world and all of the right-wing media figures and even most mainstream media figures, not yours truly, but predicted that if Russia did invade, then you would see immediately Kyiv captured and sort of the whole thing happening in 2 weeks. Obviously, that hasn't happened. For years, Russia's made inches of territorial gains. And so the sort of crass assessment that Trump's doing there of Russia, you could never take on Russia. Well, they literally are, and they have for years. So that's a lie. And Russia started it. Russia's invading. Russia continues to invade. The whole thing could be over. They just will withdraw from land that's not there. So Trump's just so distorted in his view. And then to use a phrase like, you shouldn't have started the war against a very powerful nation. When that doesn't, it's flying in the face of of reality, and it's him directing that Ukraine, not Russia, than this.
Mr. President, you repeatedly mentioned last night that Russia's attack on Ukraine was a mistake. What is the exact mistake? And have you given Putin a deadline to actually move toward a ceasefire?
The mistake was letting the war happen. If Biden were competent, and if Zelensky were competent, and I don't know that he is. We had a rough session with this guy over here. He just kept asking for more and more. That war should have never been allowed to happen. That war...
You are president right now. Whatever magical thing that you had that could have ended it, you could have brought forward now. You said you were going to end it in 24 hours, but I've said all that so many times before, so I won't say it again. I'll just kind of half sing it. I'll leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.